So, Elisa, you and I met, I think, about 18 months ago, and I know you reached out. The club was established, and so we've had a fantastic ride together so far. So why don't you take this opportunity to introduce your team or your program and just talk about, what your team does for the university.
Sure. So we are the strength and conditioning staff that works primarily with the Olympic sports. So that's everybody but football and basketball. So with this, we are trying to, as mentioned when we came on, maximize athletic potential. So first and foremost, we like to look at how athletes move and then look at what they're doing and what are the areas where we can make the most improvement. So we can be targeted with our approaches on a daily basis, on a seasonal basis, on a yearly basis, and by the time they graduate here, how have we developed them as student athletes, as individuals, as humans? So all of that wrapped up into what we do in the weight room, what we do on the field, and everything like that. So each of us supports different teams. So if I am delegated specifically to soccer, but I'll help out whomever needs help at any given time. Coach Gottleib is with the volleyballs, same thing. So our beach and indoor volleyball, same thing. We'll help out. Each of us has a little niche of what are we best at. So if I need help on this, then I'm going to go to her. If I need help on this, maybe I'm going to come over to Coach Myyra and with his expertise with the different tracks and the way we're able to pull out explosiveness out of student athletes to be able to come together as a team to service our student athletes and our teams, our programs the best that we can.
And we actually have, I think, a PowerPoint prepared where we're going to go through the technologies as well. Is that correct? So I think the team in the box, we're going to be queuing them up. In this, talk a little bit about what we're going to be going through. You're going to talk to us about what the technologies are that you use. Is that what we're getting ready to go over
Yes.
with it? All right. So I'm looking for my guy Aaron. Where's Aaron at? He must be in the back. All right. So are we ready to go with the PowerPoint? I feel like I hear them talking in the back. So while I'm waiting for that, talk about the technologies that you use. I know there's like 5 or 6.
So we've got a few that we use, and each of them are, we would like to say they're different brushes. So right, if we're an artist, if the coaches are artists, how can we do the best we can? If we had none of this technology, our job would still exist and we would still do the very best we can. With this, it allows us to tailor things, to question things, to try and maybe prove what we're trying to do, or just kind of check our work. This is what we're doing, this is what we're trying to get. Did we achieve that? Did we not achieve that? To then circle back with the process of, great, this worked, keep doing it. Or on the other side of things, it's not working, so let's change it instead of keep driving down that road that isn't providing us results.
So what's on the screen behind us is 4 stacks. We have, looks like Coach Gottlieb, and it plugs into a computer. It's gathering data. What kind of data are we gathering here?
Sure. So anything in regards to a jump, we can essentially see on these plates. They are bilateral plates, meaning instead of one big plate, we can measure leg to leg, right? Which is extremely important relative to asymmetry and some different things regarding single leg jumping, single leg drop jumping, things of that nature that we'll get into. I think a lot of times the question comes up in regards to jumping, like we need to jump higher. As a strength coach, that is something you're told quite often. We need to jump higher. What the force plate allows me to do is say, sure, we need to jump higher, but we might also need to jump faster. How do those things relate? Hey, we need to jump higher, but that person has a higher chance of ligamentous injury. It's different things we can tell there. So this helps us out. And what you're seeing is our ForceDex jump platform, meaning, so if I were to jump and then have another person come behind me, pretty fast in regards to how fast we can.
They just queued up the video for you. We're going to watch you in action.
Oh, yeah. So as you can see, it's running live, big jump. You can see the spikes on the computer. Landing, immediate recognition of the jump itself, a CMJ, a counter movement jump, and then a multiple hop test, and then automatically the program recognizes that as well. So as you can imagine, as far as speed of movement and speed of getting athletes through, efficiency is big when it comes to this kind of stuff. It's very useful.
How often are you gathering data from your student athletes?
Depends on the team, depends on the situation. Generally, once a week, twice a week if it's someone that whether it's injury prevention or something like that. Once a week, we'll do counter movement jump, and then usually a couple of times a semester, we will do an entire battery that in regards landing and counter movement jumps, drop jumps, things of that nature, just so we can get a fuller picture.
And I know we have other videos and other tools. Anything else about force decks, or where are we going next? What tools next?
Outside, obviously volleyball, jumping is a big deal. How we land is a big deal. And so being able to kind of quantify things as opposed to she jumped higher today, she touched higher today is extremely important.
And I think to go back and touch on that as well, to be able to check our work. So and to be able to utilize it is how neuromuscularly ready are you today? So this week versus next week versus the next week, if you're jumping and it's the same height, okay, pretty good. Are those numbers declining the way that you jump and the way that you land? So right, those two force plates are essentially just super sensitive scales. And how you apply force and how you absorb force paints a picture in itself. So to take an athlete who is coming back from an injury, instead of just saying, okay, if before she got hurt, she could jump and touch 21 inches. Well, now, great, she touches 21 inches again. What that doesn't tell you is, but she pushed off way harder on the leg that wasn't hurt. And when she came down really hard on that leg that wasn't hurt as well. So moving forward, right, the whole point of, I want to protect our student athletes. Well, that's not telling the whole story again, because now that other leg is at risk. Or what we're doing, what I'm doing, the loads that our staff is putting on them, the loads that through competition that just comes innately through practice and competition, are we doing right by them by giving that information to the right individuals, meaning sports medicine, sport coaches, the student athletes themselves.
I have control now. That's what I just got some information. So should I go to the next slide? I'm looking, okay.
You can go back.
Oh,
You can
go back. All right, good.
Just to touch on all the technology that we have, so we took some videos of all of them. So with these are fit lights, so it's a timing system or tracking system, and with it, so we could use it if you were we wanted to see how fast you ran the 40, and we wanted to look at a 10-yard, so with this one, agility. You can set it up to where you have to react to find the light, touch the light, and set that up and to be able to measure reaction time with this. The one up top is just if we were to run a 10, a 40, a 20, to be able to get that information accurately and for it to kick out.
I noticed there's devices on the cones. Are they
Those
picking
are
up
the fit
data?
lights. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can make those lights go by either touch or by distance. So we don't necessarily have to touch it for it to go off. We can make it as sensitive or non-sensitive as possible. So for something like agility, you can imagine we can make it pretty competitive. And we have a decent number of these, so we can have multiple stations going at once. There really isn't a ton of limits on what we can do. It's kind of just limited by whatever you want to get done.
How do the student athletes enjoy this?
I think it's pretty cool. Something we've done with volleyball, for example, is 10-3, for example, is a touch height that becomes very like, oh yeah, we got to touch 10-3 to get kills kind of thing. So we take that light, we'll put it at 10-3, make the light go off. Again, your creativity is the only thing limiting you there. So we can make it very team competitive. We can make it like a goal, and honestly, it looks really cool.
How long have we had this technology?
2 years.
Yeah.
About 2 years. Is there, as we go through this, if there's one that we just got that's kind of cool, let us know. Because I know I'm amazed at all the technologies that you use, and it creates all these data sources, and we'll talk about that after. All right, so let's see what's next. Oops. All right, so we have a video here. So, Erik, is this you going to squat?
Yeah, this is me. This is the gym aware. So it pretty much takes this a tether, you wrap it around the bar, and there's a little unit on the plate that's on the ground there. The tether attaches to a little spool, and then whenever you move the bar, it tracks how fast it moves. So essentially, you get bar velocities, whether that's like a mean velocity, a peak velocity, any type of power unit that you can get from it. It'll say that on the iPad right there.
So if you, just curious, you have, let's say, 10 athletes ready to do this, how do you go about sequencing them and getting the data? Do you have to use the software on this too?
Yeah, so every rack that we have is mounted with an iPad, and then we bring out the GymAwares and set them up before lifts. So we use this data to try to train in the right speeds. So essentially, if we're lifting heavy, we want to be able to put on enough weight so it actually slows the athlete down
Yeah.
to get to the right intensity that we want to be lifting at.
So how do they feel about that? I imagine squatting might be a little disruptive if I have to get data and you're telling me I can't, like, I got to go down slow enough. It sounds like it's going to hurt.
So most of the time, for my athletes, it's about putting on enough weight to slow them down. Because
Yeah.
they'll be like, oh man, it's really heavy. And you're like, you just lifted that really fast.
Right.
So we want to be able to train in our heavy phases slow enough to where it actually gets the effects that we want. So then eventually we will work into faster during season, and we'll use something like a peak velocity instead of like a mean velocity.
So this applies for everybody, but I'll ask you it. So I know when I would be lifting for my sport, whatever the metrics were back in the day, bench press or whatever, do you find that athletes now look at these metrics and want to understand them?
I think so. I think, especially at the beginning of the year, you have to develop habits of, this is what we're looking for. So they do have to understand why you're doing it in order for them to really buy into it.
So what's the why?
You want to get that?
I think it depends on what you're trying to accomplish in that moment. So for example, here, let's say we told Erik, hey, you have to keep a 1.0 meters per second mean velocity the entire time. Well, if they are smoked, maybe didn't get sleep the night before, stayed up watching Netflix till 3 a.m., just broke up with your boyfriend, okay, let's assume you are not primed to move it at that fast a speed. We're going to take some of the weight off, regardless of what my program says. So if I programmed 70% for 5, and what I thought was your 70% might not be your 70% that day, if I know what I'm trying to accomplish, I give that person a target, and then it takes the ideas of maxes, so to speak, out of it. That's one. 2 would be we can use it for drop-off sets. So let's say, hey, like, I want to get 10 reps above this speed. If they only get to 8, then we know we need to take off. If they're way above their target, then I know we can add a little bit more. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of percentages, because we can assume that an athlete's percentage on a Monday might not necessarily be their percentage on a Friday, relative to what's going on in the week. Or maybe they feel awesome, and then we can do a little bit more. It takes a lot of guesswork. And then a big thing for me in a velocity bias sport is intent. It's not necessarily effort, but like, we can assume, if we assume that every athlete is giving great effort in every rep, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are moving it fast. So if I say, hey, you can move the bar faster, if nothing's attached to the bar, that's telling them whether or not they are moving it as fast as they can move it, then it's very difficult for me to conceptualize that for them. But if I say, hey, you can move it faster, and then there's a target speed or there's something on the bar truly saying whether or not I moved it fast or as fast as I was looking to, then the next rep you have something to aim for, and the next rep you have something to aim for. So it drives max intent, which is really the only way to get max velocity, no matter how fast the bar is moving. Whether we're trying to train heavy or fast, we need to be moving it as fast as we can, and this helps drive that.
It sounds like the technology and the data you're able to gather, really, it's transformed everything. I mean, I brought Max because that's me 30 years ago, and that was the easiest data. We didn't have the computers, and you put it on the whiteboard, but how has this technology changed how we go through working out?
I think for me, it's, and again, maybe I have the advantage of working with people who, like, the only physical contact they're going to come, if things go the right way, the only physical thing they should be attacking on a game-to-game basis is a ball. So weight and relativity is less important to me. But for me, I've yet to find another way to conceptualize fast as I can with this. Right, so if I know that a peak velocity of this is fast and an athlete's moving it slower, then I'm just simply not accomplishing what I want to accomplish. So I think I think as strength coaches, we've moved slowly away with the technology we have. We moved slowly away from, hey, we got to max you at the beginning of the semester and we got to max you at the end of the semester. And if your max went up, you got better. And it's like, I mean, not really. Like, are you jumping faster? Can you access that force quicker? Can you respond to the ground better? Are you at less chance for injury? And this just helps quantify things that previously weren't quantifiable.
That's so cool. Anything else around GymAware? Ready to go to the next technology? Next? All right. And then do we have, are these all videos?
No.
No, they're not. Just pictures. All right, gotcha. You want me to stay on this one or go to the next one? We skip ahead, yeah. What about that? One more? That?
Perfect.
All right.
This one has a video. So this is one,
Should we play the video real quick while you talk, or? All right, in the back, if you guys could cue up the video, it'd be great.
What this is.
All right, go ahead. Lunge forward. Yep. Good. All right, shoulder abduction. Yep. And vertical jump.
That's awesome.
Okay, so if you notice, so this is Dari motion capture. So this is kind of our baseline screen that we'll use with all of our student athletes. So what it is, it's an 8-camera system that videos whatever movements that we're doing. So we'll screen them roughly through 17 movements. It will take about 15 minutes if they're paying attention and everything is going as it should. So it creates the skeleton on the computer. If you notice the digital person. that
Yeah,
was-
he looks like a video, I mean, it looks,
Like-
yeah, like EA, sports doing their stuff,
So
yeah.
that's so if you've seen the how to make a video game and you see the NFL player that's got the spandex suit on, that's got the neon balls at all the joints, so that would be a marker system. The thing about this, it is a markerless system. So as long as
Gotcha.
you're wearing fitting clothing, it auto recognizes where all of your joints are. And so to be able to take athletes through different movements, to be able to look at joint angles in action, as opposed to, say, the athletic trainer would get a goniometer and would say, okay, she has X amount of internal, external rotation at your shoulder. And maybe that's correct, maybe it's not, because you get here and then there's flexion in the back, depending on who's taking those measurements. This takes all of the guesswork out of it. The algorithms are written, so when you get here and you see the spine move, so the screen that you see on the computer, we can click around, so that's showing the frontal plane of it, but we could click around to look at the side and the back and everything like that to see all the different angles, to be able to quickly get all of that information. What are all of those angles in action? Again, in action. So to say something that's important for our soccer ladies would be knee valgus. So that's when your knee bows in. If you see someone who's knock-kneed, that is valgus. For someone who is a lower body athlete that has to adjust to different things, if you have a lot of that, that's a red flag for injury. So to say, okay, when she jumps, that happens. Now, here's the intervention we're going to put into place. Does that change or not? Again, allowing us to check our work and create the student athlete to be as robust as possible.
In working with you and learning about your process, obviously you have a passion for trying to use the technology and gather data. So I'm interested in knowing a little bit more. So if you have a session like this, are there people waiting in line? They come in and does the software configure them and then you record? How does the motionless sensor work?
So we'll set them through they'll get on what you saw at that point was the system recognizing Erik. So you stand in a certain position, you'll go through a couple.
Can you guys hit play again on the video?
All right, go ahead. Lunge forward. Yep.
Okay.
So at that point, it's just
All right,
calibrating
shoulder
the system.
abduction.
You can see that the light gets brighter as I do more movements on the screen. The little skeleton gets a little bit brighter.
Okay, yeah, awesome.
So
what
with
are
that, we normally schedule 2 athletes every half an hour. So again, we should zip through in about 12, 15 minutes. That's normally coupled with sports medicine and nutrition as well, to where they're maybe getting their physicals. So this is part of the physical process. Baseline, how does Elisa move? How does Lance move? To then be efficient with their time. If we only have 1 hour twice a week to make them stronger, faster, more agile, less prone to injury, we have to be, it makes sense to be as targeted as possible. So you might not need to work on glute activation, you have a shoulder activation.
Right.
Something that you need to work on, to where maybe my accessory work is different than yours or yours or yours.
Who uses this data?
We all do.
When you say we all, is it just your team or just, how about it, go ahead.
There's generally a collaborative strength coach collects and disseminates to athletic trainer if we see something in particular that needs to be addressed both on their end and our end, then we can kind of work together to get that done.
And you talked about, the camera, is it mounted on the ceiling or
They're
where's?
mounted on the ceiling, so that, if you see the green floor that kind of looks
Yes.
like a children play zone, so that's the capture area. So there's a camera directly in front of him, and then at each, corner of the square and halfway through each one as well.
Do not throw med balls against the walls on the sign there. Is that a problem?
That has,
It was.
it was, correct. One, because the back wall is drywall.
Okay,
Alright.
yeah, that wouldn't work very well.
The other one is brick, but, right, to throw a med ball against it would decalibrate the cameras.
Okay, no.
Not ideal.
How long have we been using this tool?
About 3 years.
3 years, okay, excellent. Anything else around this tool? Where do we want to go to next? Go back, forward?
Hi, can we go back?
Go back, there's back.
So all the
One
tech
more,
that we
or
showed
here?
you, yes, please.
Here we go.
Was more so general for everybody, that we work with athletes in general, and our job is to make them better athletes. There's also tech that certain teams use that is sport specific. So this tech here, the soccer team uses it. So with that, if I am hands-on with soccer, so I'll help out with that as much as possible. So this is looking at external loads. When an athlete is running on the field, how far did they go? How fast did they go? How many times did they change direction? What was their max speed? Just a slew of information is taken through this. Up on the left-hand side is the unit that all the student athletes wear. It goes on a little pouch. So if the ladies they wear sports bras, for the guys we call them bros. If men were to wear them, same thing. It looks just like a sports bra. There's a little pouch right in the back between your shoulder blades that we turn that guy on, slide it in. Looks like what's on the bottom there. Right under to the right is the live receiver. So yes, it's collecting this information. We could turn it on, put it in their back. They practice. Practice goes on. Afterward, we take it off and download it, and would be fine. We could cut the data. And to be able to clean it up to say what happened in this exercise versus this exercise, or what happened in the entire session there. Or we could live monitor, and we do that as well. We could live monitor games, we'll live monitor practice to say where is each individual. We've used this for a long time. So before I got here, they had it where I was before. We've used it as well. So to be able to say, anytime we play this school, we can expect this load to happen. When we do this drill, we can expect this load to happen. So from us to periodize out to make with the goal of on competition day to be as ready as possible on competition day. There's some days where we're gonna have to push and we're looking to train a little bit harder. That's probably not the day right before a game. So we can be smart about how we're applying load to the student athletes from an external standpoint.
How do the coaches have that conversation with you, or you get them that feedback on that would help them with their practice sessions? They obviously use this, they count on this. So
Yes.
what's your role in that process?
So we will take all of the information, and what we've done is sorted all of those norms. So again, when we play a game, for this person, this is what their averages are. For this position, this is what those averages are, and what happened on any given day. We'll discuss. So months before any season starts, we'll go through the calendar. And first off, we'll put in what are our game days. We'll need off days as well. When are we traveling? Are we not traveling? Is this a game that we anticipate being more challenging? Okay, we need to make sure we're not loading them too heavy for this. If this is a team that historically we are able to get more subs in to where each individual doesn't produce as much load on that given day, so we can go a little bit heavier before or after for those. We've also taken all of their practice drills and kind of made a menu for them to say, Coach, these are your hard drills, these are your medium drills, these are your light drills, and then choose what you would like with that.
Have you been able to get to the point that a player has a specific training goal as far as that medium, high, and low, and how do you help monitor that during the practice session?
So it depends on what time of the year. The easy question is it depends. Say in the off season though is when that information is a little bit more, we're making more decisions off of it. So if coach, this is going to be a hard day and this drill should elicit this load on student athlete. You should have ran 20 meters of high-speed running, which is anything over 5.2 meters per second. Okay, drill happens, and I ran my 20, you ran your 20, Lance didn't get any. Okay, Lance on the line, we're gonna run. So you can either get it done in session, or we'll get it done immediately after, or at the end of practice. So that's a quick coaches on the field running said session. We have a practice plan in front of us, so I know what they should hit. Whistle blows or time. Elisa, how are our numbers? Erik, Tasha, Elisa on the line. We've got 2 runs real quick. So also kind of helping the student athletes understand it doesn't need to be where we're standing on the line and blowing a whistle. You can get that physical challenge in the drill, or we could do it.
Not only in the drill, I had a chance to watch this play out where the coach at the end called you out, and then you called the players with the end line started running. And I've had a chance to talk to just some student athletes in general, because I'm an athlete and a coach. I have heard about behavior change that maybe players run to the water break. Is that true?
That has happened before.
And because the data is being captured, right?
Yes, and it all counts.
Because I know when the 5 players' names got called and they had to run the 100-yard sprints, I'm thinking, why isn't the rest of the team running with them? And it had to do,
Because they got them in somewhere
they were
else.
good. Yes, exactly. Anything else around this technology? You want me to go to the next slide?
We can go on.
Okay. So what's this?
Sure. This is Whoop, essentially internal load monitoring. So we talked about force decks, which in a way, internal load neurological testing, this is more based around HRV or heart rate variability, the space between your heartbeats, right? Lots of research out about when this is in a good place, we're probably in a more primed position to play well. So what Whoop does is shoot us back a strain. So essentially how much aerobic load have we taken over the course of the day? Obviously someone that's in a little bit better shape will be able to do the same things and perceive it differently or as less intense as someone that's not in as good a shape over the same amount of time. And then we also get a recovery score back. Recovery for the next day would be based a lot around how well are we sleeping. That's probably the biggest tenet, which is something we kind of harp on to our athletes quite a bit. What does our sleep look like? And then the things surrounding that sleep. How much of it is REM? How much of it is restorative? And then honestly, HRV encompasses a great amount of things that have to do with readiness. So is your athlete under a lot of stress? We've had multiple situations that happened before where an athlete will be getting great sleep and maybe their recovery has been poor for multiple days in a row. And we definitely have like some staff-based metrics in regards to, hey, if this person's in the red, so poor recovery for 3 straight days, that probably means that our chance for injury is higher on X day. Hey, coach, we need to be prepared to deal with that. We need to have a plan to deal with that. But again, that's where kind of there's the data, and the data is awesome, but that's where we overlay with, hey, like, are you okay? Like, you know, and a lot of times it's amazing what comes of that and what comes of those conversations. So essentially being able to tell what did we do from a load perspective, and then how did the athlete perceive it? They wear it around their Whoop. Oftentimes you'll see them wearing it around their bicep, which is generally where my athletes will have it while they're playing. We currently have soccer, indoor volleyball, beach volleyball, softball, as well as women's tennis completely on the system, with some other sports using it sporadically. But just gives us a picture of something that otherwise we literally would never know outside of some RPE-based things, which we can see. They have a platform as well that they can kind of give us some subjective feedback. But it's awesome from a standpoint of giving our coaches a snapshot of, we have conversations all the time about like, hey, like today might need to be a light day. I know you didn't plan for it to be a light day, but relative to what yesterday was, today needs to be a light day based off of how we recovered and based on the strains we put down yesterday. Again, if you can't put a number on it, it's just very difficult to quantify that to someone who's been doing it a certain way for a while. So this is extremely helpful in giving us as well as our coaches a feel for internally how we're conceptualizing whatever load is going on, or honestly whatever else is going on in an athlete's life.
Excellent. Thank you for those insights. Is there any other technology with the PowerPoint?
There's one more.
Okay, so go forward or backwards? I can't.
Forward.
Okay. This one?
Those are just some of the reports that catapults the GPS system
Okay.
will kick out.
What's the last one?
And then Vert.
Vert. Eventually we have,
we
Vert
keep
at the
going.
end.
I love
Yeah.
it. Oh, these are great.
Okay.
These are great visualizations. Oh, Vert. So I'm looking for Vert.
Right
So,
here.
Right there.
Right here?
Next
more.
one.
This
right
one.
There we go.
All right. Who's got this one?
Indoor volleyball uses Vert. Vert, very similar to Catapult. So we just talked about internal load. This will give us more of a feel for external load. It is a wearable that they wear in pouches that are on their spandex that they wear for games. It gives us force plate testing is awesome, but it's extremely controlled. And unfortunately, nothing that they do in their sport is controlled at all. Like single leg landings, heavy landings, we need to be able to quantify those things as they are happening. This allows for how many times did we jump, how well are we sustaining our jump throughout the course of a match. It gives us a chance to tag drills so that we say, hey, if we do this drill for this long, this is how many jumps we are going to put down. And most importantly, from my perspective, it gives us a great feel for how heavy we are landing. If someone is more fatigued, more than likely they will land heavier. And then we have some athletes that are just naturally heavy landers. Even though you can teach them to land beautifully, in match, they go to hit a ball, they're gonna land really heavy. We need to be able to modify for that person accordingly. If we can see live at practice that someone's landing percentage is really, really high, or a certain number of jumps that they've put down during practice are extremely heavy, hey coach, can that person play back row for the rest of practice, particularly if it's over their norms, meaning they're just gonna pass, as opposed to putting down even more impacts. When able to, so you can go on to the next one.
Next slide.
Yep. Okay, so if we take everything we just talked about, as far as internal load and external load, then you could probably get a pretty good picture of where we are on a day-to-day basis. That makes it really easy to kind of visualize. So what we've done is essentially take Whoop data as well as Vert data. So on this version of the report, there is Whoop data only, but on another version, there is Whoop data and Vert data. And essentially, when we hit certain markers, or if someone is deviated off baseline X%, it lights up a particular color. So essentially, I just tell my coaches, hey, the redder the person, the more we need to be on the lookout, the more we might need to move to a plan B, particularly if that person's live metrics during practice start to kind of deviate away from where we want them to be as well. So the idea is to give as clear a picture as possible without overloading someone with a ton of information. And this is how we go about accomplishing that on a day-to-day basis. They get this report every day that is not an off day.
I'm going to ask maybe one or two questions, and then we'll go to the audience. So have your questions queued up. We've looked at all these technologies, great visualizations. There's a lot of data here. Talk about how many data sources do you have, and just how is the process of pulling this together?
So as you've seen a lot of our toys that we have, and all of them kick out a crazy amount of data. And just like our phones, we probably only use this much of it. I do think with the staff that we have, the help that we have, we do a really good job comparatively to other places, other competitors of ours. I think we do a beautiful job of it. Is there still much, much deeper we can go? Absolutely. But so if I'm in my hub and I'm collecting, and Coach is in her hub and we're collecting, and our, like the data side of it, not the visualizations, that's not our area of expertise. Coach Myyra has been phenomenal in listening to us, hearing our problems, and saying, okay, or maybe this is what would enable me to tell a story faster. Can you make that happen? Because it's taking me forever, to where we have more people behind the scenes. So we have undergrad interns that are helping us out. We've got master's students that are helping us out. But it's teaching them, so it's one, us understanding it, two, being able to explain what it is that we want to see, and then producing that, and then doing it right after practice or on a daily basis to be able to get that information and be able to have those discussions with the coaches in a timely fashion. So there's a whole lot of spinning plates that have to happen behind the scenes in order for us to do our job the best that we can.
And I think one of the things this team has embodied for me and getting to watch them do their work, these are professional coaches, by the way, and they've had to become data scientists to be able to accelerate the learning process for the coaches and the athletes as well. So it's fantastic listening to them learn some of the business skills that they've had to get on the fly, and it opens up those opportunities to partner, which is why we have gotten a chance to spend time together, which is phenomenal. I'm going to open go to the audience for some questions, and I'm going to ask, you're going to help me out. You're going to hear a question, try to paraphrase it, and whoever's going to take it, repeat the question back because we're recording this, and then answer it. So I'll help you facilitate that too. All right, who wants to ask the first question? Yes, sir.
So essentially, he asked.
What was the question again? It was about, yeah.
What expectations are set for each individual athlete relative to body norms or positional norms or things of that nature? I think, and again, that's going to be very sports specific. But for my standpoint, it's all based around like, what does that person need to be able to do? For example, our liberos. Them jumping high is awesome. It's probably a great metric of explosiveness, but for them, we can see how much player load or energy they are expending over the course of a game, over the course of a practice. So if our best libero is expending X amount of energy, but somebody that's competing with that person, or maybe a second or third stringer, is expending exorbitant amounts more, we can probably assume that person is either being inefficient in their movement or otherwise. Whereas a middle, we can assume that they're going to land kind of heavy and they're going to jump way more, so their energy expenditure is generally going to be higher than a libero's. So what happens is, especially I know with Coach, she has such a large storage of data that you can go back and make positional norms. Same thing with the force plates. Our outsides should be awesome at jumping with impulse, long range, long time, build up type jumps. Our middles should be awesome at being bouncy and being really reactive. Same thing with our liberos, because everything with them happens within one step. Whereas our outsides have a long time to run up. Our beach volleyball players should be awesome at the run up. They're generally not going to be bouncy. So you see how like positionally it can kind of break down, but then once you get a big enough storage of data, then you can say, hey, our best players generally did this at this position, and then reference back toward that. Does that answer your question?
And just listening to that, I got to ask an add-on question. Have you seen this to where it impacts how we go about recruiting?
Yes, and that is building. We are particularly with the force plate data and volleyball. It's just so turnkey. We are allowed when they're on campus for like camp, as long as we test everyone throughout the camp. We can test recruits that are here, and we can tell. I can jump someone on the plate and then walk over to a coach and say, hey, that person's like this on the team. Or if you're recruiting her, she's probably going to need to be better at this, which is completely allowed as long as it's in like a camp environment and open to everyone.
That's powerful. Wow. Yes.
And I think on top of that we have a bunch of toys, and we have a lot of people that know how to use them, and to be able to speak with student athletes and their parents to say, this is what we have in place to protect and develop your student athlete or your son or daughter. Being that we're not just the meatheads in the weight room that we just need to lift weights. I mean, that fixes a lot of stuff. Being strong absolutely fixes a lot of things, but our stories, our passion, the resources and support that we have, I think also doesn't hurt recruiting.
That's fantastic. All right, let's take a question from over here. Yes, sir.
You guys have a lot of different sources of data. In a perfect world, a lot of that stuff would align, and it would potentially say this person is doing well or they're doing poorly. But what happens when you have the load data doesn't match with the HRV data, that doesn't match with the motion capture? How do you guys tease that out?
So I think that just brings forward conversations and bringing more people into the picture, or speaking with the student athletes themselves to say, what's going on? Or maybe double checking, well, it doesn't line up with the DARI system. Okay, well, it wasn't on that day. The other ones were okay. Or having a conversation of, wow, what's going on with your recovery? I think that for Coach to say it, as she had brought up, A lot of times it has nothing to do with sport. Why is your strain so high on Tuesdays, and when we have a game on Wednesday, that's concerning? Oh, well, I have class clear across campus, and I have to go up this huge hill, and it's 104 degrees. Okay, can someone drop you off on Tuesdays? Problems like for
Yeah.
things like that to come forth and be able to solve those.
It was a great question, acknowledging the multiple data sources and then the data quality as well. Like, what can you trust? And then the answer just around, it depends, and looking at the situation. I think that is what the process is about at the end of the day. Yes, Eric.
And I think it's what you have to do is you have to be able to collect data. The more that you collect that data, the more that those outliers will definitely, you can sort of get rid of some of those
Yes.
at some point. Because if you're, that is one of 2 data points, then it changes your average or standard deviation by such a large amount. So if you collect the data more often, then you can see that maybe it's just an anomaly for the day or for the, that week or whatever it is. But essentially, in those points when you have something that doesn't align, yeah, you got to look at it. But if you collect the data more often, then you can see that sometimes it may just be an anomaly.
And I actually sense excitement, and I like that. Like, we're all here today, and even all the storytellers we've had to date, talking about, whether it's Allie with the survey or Mike with the real-time data or James with, I need that data, and the more of it I can get, then I can learn more and make, quicker adjustments too.
Yeah, and I think something that's super important to point out that I think gets lost is, like, we're dealing with college students. Let's say they just weren't athletes, and the variability in a college student's life. And now we're trying to take all of that and account for it in numbers. And sometimes it's just not going to be possible. And that's where, like, us having real conversations with these people is super important in a way that I think oftentimes in professional sports, you can have a lot more control. We are on an hours limit. We cannot necessarily tell them you have to sleep this much. We can strongly suggest, but we cannot tell. And I just think that's always important to kind of remember is, like, they're with us. They're going to be with me on at most an hour and a half to 2 hours a day. With the coach at most 3 to 4 hours a day. There's a lot of other hours in the day that we are trying to quantify and then make adjustments based off.
We have time for one more question, so let's make it good. Who's going to ask it? Oh, I just scared everybody. No, sorry. Let me go over here in the back. Yes.
So, a lot of athletes' favorite thing is recovery. How do you treat recovery differently from an endurance or push-based athlete to an explosive, fast-twitch athlete? You treat it differently.
Repeat the question too, whoever's going to take it.
So I think the question is, how would we treat different athletes differently based on their event, say a sprinter versus a distance individual, and would our recommendations or guidance be different? On our side, or particularly with me, no. There's a discussion with the coaches, and if we were talking about swimming or track and taper, and does one athlete need to taper more or not? That's a different discussion. But for general day-to-day recovery, no. Like the science behind it of, are you getting enough sleep? How much sleep is that? What quality of sleep is that? How hydrated are you? How much stress are you putting on the body? Are you doing 2-a-days? Are you also lifting? Are you also doing dry land? It would be a discussion of, here's what you can do to put yourself in the best position possible to get a higher recovery on the next day and the day after that and the day after that. That would be the same regardless.
Great question. So I just want to, I was just thinking up here, I want to, the team that's in the room with the PowerPoint, thank you back there for helping us out. And when I think about the people we're talking to today, these are the people behind the scenes that help the athletes or the businesses to maximize whatever their goals are, what they're trying to do. This was, I love that we were able to showcase what your team does today. So help me thank this team for coming today.